Hi everyone, it's Dr. Metcalf again. I thought we had a great second week of the course. As you know, we talked about theory and how to apply it to organizational culture. And in looking at the discussion boards and thinking about our conversations, I thought it would be useful for us to stop and think about what the role of theory is and where it comes from. So all theories have assumptions, and if we don't understand the assumptions that are driving those theories, we may not always use them effectively. So each theory comes from a particular paradigm of research. So there is the post-positivist or the traditional research paradigm, there's an interpretivist paradigm, there is a critical theory paradigm. And what differentiates these from one another is their assumptions, or what we call meta-theoretical assumptions. So there are three types of meta-theory: epistemology, axiology, and ontology. And it's important to know what these are because these dictate what scholars see is the role of theory in communication research. So the first one, epistemology, is basically how do we know what we know about the social world. So people's stances on this can be seen as a continuum. So on one side, we have objectivists. And objectivists think the social world is something that is out there that can be studied through our senses, through science. Meanwhile, on the other side of the continuum, we have subjectivists, and subjectivists see the social world as something that has to be understood through the perspectives and the experiences of the researcher and the people being studied. Then we have ontology. Ontology, again, is a continuum. So we have a view on the nature of reality or of our social reality. And so on this ontological continuum, we have on one side realists. And these believe that the social world has real fixed structures and they can be studied objectively. Meanwhile, on the other side of the continuum, we have nominalists, and they see the social world as something that's socially constructed and is changing, and we only ever have access to one aspect of the social world. Then our last meta-theoretical assumption is axiology, which has to do with our view of the role of values in research. So on one side, again, a continuum, we have objectivists who want to minimize the effects of the values. They understand researchers, yes, have values, but we don't want those to interfere with the research being done. So in order to do this, they use the scientific method and strict methodology to try to divorce value from what's being studied. On the opposite side of the spectrum, we have subjectivists. Subjectivists believe that values are there, and if anything, they should be celebrated in our research. So they look at values as a lens through which we use the world, and having self-awareness of your values as a researcher is critical to understanding how you're interpreting the information you're observing about the social world. So these three types of meta-theoretical assumptions come together to form these different research paradigms that we've talked about. So the post-positivist, the interpretivist, the critical theory paradigms. And so a post-positivist researcher is someone who sees that there is an ultimate truth out there in the world, and we just have to study and use science to find it. So they tend to be very objectivist, very realist. They want to minimize values through use of the scientific method. Whereas interpretivists, and to some degree critical theorists, see the world as something that is subjective. They tend to be more nominalist. It's socially constructed. It's always changing. There's no real objective truth out there. And really the best we can do is understand the experiences of the people within the social world through the lens of the values of the researcher and the researched. So depending on your perspective, this has a big impact on the kinds of theories they produced and the way they should be used. So we have prescriptive theories, which often come from post-positivists, and a prescriptive theory argues that this is how something should work. If you do this thing, you will get good outcomes as a result of it. So they see social world as fairly objective, and if I take these objective results I found through my research and apply them in any one of a number of contexts, I should get similar results. Now, a descriptive theory is very different. A descriptive theory doesn't see an objective reality or social reality out there. So they think that at best we can really understand the artifacts and the values of a particular culture. They're not recommending that certain things happen, but what they're saying is that through an in-depth understanding of this culture, maybe I can take those ideas and look at other cultures and use that to illuminate or as another kind of lens to bring other things to the forefront as I'm studying in other contexts. So if you think about it, whether a theory is predictive or descriptive has big effects when we want to move from theory to application. So we have to think about what all of these assumptions that have gone into creating these theories are. So if we feel that like a post-positivist, that truth is out there and we have discovered it, we can apply that research in a prescriptive way in a variety of situations. Whereas if we're an interpretivist, we see the knowledge that we generate as really localized knowledge. So the theory is going to be descriptive. It's that in-depth understanding, and it's not going to be transferable everywhere. So what it really is just a stepping stone to explain other contexts and situations. So it's important for us to understand this. And the thing is, researchers aren't always upfront about what research paradigm they're coming from or what their meta-theoretical assumptions are. So as grad students, your job now is, as you're reading the research, to try to understand what are the researchers' assumptions when they're approaching this subject, and what are their goals in creating the theory. If their goal is to be prescriptive, obviously we will apply the theory in a prescriptive way. But if their goal is descriptive, but we try to use the theory as a prescriptive or telling people this is the way it should be and applying it in other situations, it won't work as well. So theory is complicated. You're going to see this more and more as you proceed throughout the master's program, but I wanted to give you a brief overview because it's really important to understand that you're using theory in the way it was intended. Otherwise, you're not going to be A, using it appropriately, or really B, getting the results that you're wanting to. So if you have any questions about this, y'all, just let me know. Like I said, I thought we had a great week 2, and I'm really looking forward to week 3.